From San Diego to a street race in St. Petersburg, the 2026 NASCAR schedule is full of surprises. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Today, NASCAR released the 2026 Cup, O'Reilly, and Craftsman Truck Series schedules. I'm going to analyze the good, the bad, the conflicts, the confusion, the showstoppers, the date swaps, and so much more. But first, let's just look at every schedule by series, beginning with Cup. The first 5, really the first 6 if you include the Clash, are exactly the same. Daytona 500, Sunday, February 15th on Fox. Spring Darlington is a little earlier in the year this time around. There's an off week for Easter. Watkins Glen, typically a late summer staple, has been moved to May 10th, Mother's Day weekend. The All-Star race will be at Dover. NASCAR's Ben Kennedy told reporters today that that race will likely be held during the daytime. Dover does not have permanent lights. I don't think it's feasible to bring in enough temporary lights for that one race weekend. So Dover All-Star in broad daylight, okay. Amazon Prime Video's coverage kicks off once again with the Coca-Cola 600. They've got San Diego, of course, June 21st, Naval Base Coronado. Chicagoland makes its triumphant return on TNT July 5th, 4th of July weekend. Echo Park Atlanta Motor Speedway on July 12th is expected to be a night race. And on July 19th, North Wilkesboro gets a points-paying Cup Series race. Dale Earnhardt Jr. says we can expect that to be 400 laps. Woo, big time for North Wilkesboro Speedway. There's a second Cup Series off week after the Brickyard 400 in late July, early August, and then the 10-race playoffs. Now, this is how NASCAR showed the 2026 schedule with the same 3-3-3 one-race winner-take-all playoff format we have today. But once again, Ben Kennedy assured reporters that NASCAR is still considering a change to next year's playoff format. Could be just a Truck or Xfinity Series change, could be a Cup Series change. There's a chance things stay the same. That's what this would look like, but there is still a chance things could evolve. So keep that in mind. But there you have the playoffs. Southern 500 kicks them off once again. New Hampshire has been taken out of the playoffs. The Roval in the round of 12, as currently listed, remains. And then, of course, championship weekend returns to Homestead Miami Speedway, Florida, November 6th, 7th, and the Cup race on November 8th. That is the NASCAR Cup Series 2026 schedule. Let's look at the Xfinity schedule, or should I say the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series schedule. Once again, Daytona kicks things off. Darlington is on there twice now, spring and fall. Rockingham returns. Watkins Glen in May. That's a triple header weekend. Trucks, Xfinity, Cup. San Diego, also a triple header weekend. Gateway, the regular season finale, and then you can see how their playoffs would shake out if the format remains untouched. Now, naturally, some of the biggest schedule changes were announced weeks ago. Naval Base Coronado, finale returning to Homestead, but the Craftsman Truck Series kept at least one surprise up their sleeve. Their season kicks off at Daytona, Atlanta, and then St. Petersburg, Florida. They will be the supporting act for IndyCar's St. Petersburg race weekend. Huge promotional effort from Fox, who broadcast both series. Truck Series to St. Pete, my goodness. Watkins Glen, again on their schedule, part of that triple header. Dover will be a triple header as well. That's All-Star weekend for Cup. They'll be at San Diego, Lime Rock, road courses back-to-back. They still have a points date at North Wilkesboro, and then you can see how their playoffs look as of now. Again, one more reminder, the format could still change. Now, Ben Kennedy didn't say it was likely to change or that it was guaranteed to change. He just said things could change, evolve between now and the start of the 2026 season. But there's a snapshot of the Cup, O'Reilly, and Truck Series schedules. Now let's break things down. I've sorted a few of the most notable announcements into two categories, good and bad. We're keeping it simple. Now, what I consider good and what I consider bad may differ from what you consider good and bad. These are just my opinions. Let's start with some good. NASCAR kicking off America's 250th birthday at Naval Base Coronado has the potential to be a summer smash hit. Triple header weekend, Trucks Xfinity Cup, you replace the Chicago street race with another similar street style race. NASCAR back in Southern California, patriotic backdrop, prime video broadcasting. The Top Gun inspired promo NASCAR put out is already some of the best content they have ever produced. I cannot wait for San Diego 2026. Now let's talk about something bad. I'll just rip the band-aid off. Dover All-Star Race. Nobody asked for this. Broad daylight. Track loses its one remaining points date. Dover is a place that needs long runs to rubber in the track, so you'll give them a race that's notorious for short runs? Where is the sense? Hopefully, NASCAR uses this as an opportunity to test something wild with the car. Radical new tire compound, way too much horsepower. I can hope. I get wanting to give North Wilkesboro a points date, I really do, but wouldn't it have been easier to swap North Wilkesboro with like Spring Bristol? Both are SMI owned. Spring Bristol has struggled to establish its own identity in recent years. I'm sure there was a logistical reason they couldn't, but in my perfect world, that's the swap I would have made, not Dover. The one plus side is at least the Truck Series is returning. It's a full triple header race weekend, so Dover fans will have something new to watch next season. Back to something positive. The in-season challenge begins at Sonoma Raceway, not Atlanta, thank goodness. This is, of course, assuming the in-season challenge returns. Yes, I know Sonoma is a road course race, but at least it's not the chaos grenade Atlanta was this year. That was the problem with this year's in-season challenge. It kind of ran out of steam before it really got started. So many contenders, favorites got crashed early at Atlanta in that huge wreck. Atlanta is still part of next year's in-season challenge, TNT run, but at least it's not the opener. I think starting at Sonoma will give next year's tournament a bit more staying power than this year's. Another negative, at least in my opinion, no international races anywhere. Still no deal with Montreal, no truck or Xfinity race at Canadian Tire. Mexico City is off the schedule, largely due to scheduling conflicts with next summer's FIFA World Cup. So hopefully this is a temporary blip, but with all of the talk of pushing international boundaries, NASCAR wants to race in Canada, in Mexico, there's been talk of Brazil. Considering all that chatter, considering NASCAR brought a next-gen car to France to the 24 Hours of Le Mans, it's got to be disappointing that there's not a single international event on next year's calendar. I consider that at least a short-term loss. Back to the good, Homestead Miami Speedway hosting the finale. Look, Phoenix is a great city. I think the facility there is phenomenal, but the racing at Homestead Miami Speedway is so much better. And the place hosted the finale for nearly 20 years. Drivers can race right on the edge. Track has multiple grooves. I expect Homestead Miami Speedway to end next season, hopefully on a high note. Another negative, and this one may be polarizing, but the Charlotte Roval. Why is it still here? And why is Watkins Glen not the playoff road course race? I'm not anti-Roval, I'm just pro-Charlotte Oval. The 600's been a great race the past few years. I agree that NASCAR needs a road course in the playoffs to keep the schedule balanced, 100%, but like last year, they bumped Watkins Glen back a few weeks into early September, and I felt like that worked okay. I mean, Watkins Glen fans, correct me if I'm wrong. Moving Watkins Glen into that opening playoff round and putting the Roval back at the Oval would have been the better course of action, in my opinion. Instead, moving Watkins Glen to May, Mother's Day weekend, early in the summer. I mean, that's late spring. The weather in the summer at Watkins Glen has been amazing. Fans show up, tons of campers. You risk blowing up that tradition by moving Watkins Glen several months earlier in the year. I feel like it would have been easier to just push Watkins Glen back a few weeks, let that be the road course playoff race, and put the fall Charlotte race back on the Oval. That's what I would have done. Maybe there were some logistics getting in the way. Another big win, Chicagoland Speedway is returning. I'm going to miss the Chicago street race, but it's getting a spiritual successor of sorts with San Diego. Chicagoland, a 1.5-mile track, aging asphalt, should put on a phenomenal show with the next gen car. I hope fans show up because I'm looking forward to that weekend. July 4th weekend, very special. Another negative, I'm keeping you sprint car racing fans in mind here. Richmond Saturday night in August conflicts with next year's Knoxville Nationals. Huge sprint car race. Kyle Larson has competed in it almost every year for the past decade, I believe. That's at risk next season. Now, I don't know who to blame for this because NASCAR just scheduled the Richmond Saturday night race for the exact same weekend as this year. They just copy-pasted. The Knoxville Nationals moved their event back a full week. So they did announce theirs first. Maybe NASCAR could have pivoted, but you're asking NASCAR to potentially upend their whole schedule at the 11th hour to accommodate the Knoxville Nationals. That doesn't sound like something NASCAR would typically do. So it's a bummer that as of now, Knoxville Nationals and the Cup Series are directly competing with one another. Again, that will likely prevent Kyle Larson from participating in one of his favorite events. That's a bummer for race fans more broadly, even if NASCAR doesn't necessarily see it that way. Another positive, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, the Xfinity Series, goes to Darlington twice. March 21st, September 5th, spring and fall. From a fan's perspective, I love this. I think the Xfinity or O'Reilly cars put on the best show of any series at Darlington. I know it's not a huge flashy market for the teams, but at least it's close to home, and I think it puts on a fantastic show for the fans. So I consider that a win from my perspective. But another negative, no Portland off the schedule. This is another one, kind of like Knoxville, doesn't impact me directly. I can't say I'm going to miss Portland next year, but there's such a gap in that region of the country. The Mountain Time Zone, the Pacific Northwest, so few NASCAR tracks, races, events in that region. There are millions of fans that are almost forgotten. I understand that logistically getting all these teams from Charlotte, North Carolina to Portland, that's a huge undertaking. You're asking a lot of the Xfinity and Truck Series teams in particular, but it's still a bummer that Portland not on the Truck or Xfinity schedule next year. Once again, a huge gap up here that hopefully one day can be permanently filled in. I could probably keep going all day and find other nitpicks and details to talk about, but we'll wrap up with this. I think it's a positive that there are 2 full off weekends for the NASCAR Cup Series. I'm not too worried about the drivers. I'm thinking of everyone else in the industry who grinds for 40 plus weeks a year, week in, week out, tight schedule, little to no breaks. I'm not saying the drivers don't, put in the work, potentially suffer from burnout, but they're also paid handsomely. They're the face of the franchise. It's all the men and women at the race shops working in media, PR, who travel away from their families. The unseen heroes of the NASCAR garage. To give that Cup Series group an extra off weekend in early August, I think is very huge for the health of this part of the sport. There will always be drivers who want to race in NASCAR, who want to make it to the Cup Series, chase that glory, but finding those other workers to put in those hard hours at the shop, around the team, week in, week out, that gets harder and harder to do, especially with how much travel and how little downtime there is during the season. So I consider that a positive, generally speaking, for many in the industry. And I'm saying that, who selfishly would like to see 50 races a year from a content perspective. Glad to see so many in the industry get one extra week with their families, hopefully, at least a chance to catch a breather. But we'll wrap up with this. There's one last topic I want to sort here. I can't decide if this should go in the good or the bad category, so I'll create a new category, the we'll see, wait and see category. That's where I'm gonna put trucks at St. Petersburg. On paper, I love this idea. St. Petersburg is an iconic race for the IndyCar series, the Truck Series getting to be that supporting act, honestly getting to take advantage of some of the energy that is already around that event. I think that's huge for the Craftsman Truck Series, which in some ways I feel needs a fresh rebrand. Ram coming in is going to help with that, but from a broadcast, a team perspective, there's not a lot of energy around trucks right now, not like there used to be. Racing at St. Petersburg with IndyCar alongside open wheel early in the season. Fox, of course, broadcasting both events. They're going to put extra work into promoting it. That could be a huge moment for trucks. Great way to kick off their 2026 season. The reason I put it in the we'll see category, however, are I don't know how the trucks are going to race at St. Petersburg. How are they going to navigate those tight corners? This will be the first street race in Craftsman Truck Series history. Something to keep in mind. Also, adding St. Pete, adding San Diego means there will be 5 road courses on next year's truck schedule. That's 20% of the season. 5 road courses compared to only 3 on this year's schedule. And you watch that Lime Rock race, Watkins Glen kind of devolved. I don't think the truck's road course product is their bread and butter. So having 5 road races, including a couple street races like St. Pete, makes me a little nervous from an actual racing product perspective. But the energy around St. Petersburg that late February weekend is sure to be dynamic. Looking forward to seeing how it goes. I will be watching with a very curious eye. So there you go. That's my breakdown of the 2026 Cup, O'Reilly, and Craftsman Truck Series schedules. Anything that jumped out to you? Are there any other major concerns or conflicts that you can think of? Let me know down in the comment section below. While you're down there, I'd appreciate if you hit that like button. Helps the show out a ton. Also subscribe if you're new. We just hit 250,000 subscribers, an unbelievable milestone. I greatly appreciate your support. I also appreciate those of you who support on Patreon every month. More to come this week. Daytona regular season finale right around the corner. I'll see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in, folks.